sequencing. In terms of sequencing, we need to think about how many examples you can find of sequencing in this example. So we've got the process here of making bricks. Over to the side we have beginning with, so that means firstly, what other phrases does the writer use? So we see here quite a lot of phrases and that are used for sequencing here. Culminating in is a good phrase to use for finishing. Just notice also they're using the word then. Sometimes we can use then. Notice how they change from following this to followed by a. So there's two ways you can use follow. They're the two common ways. Notice that the language has to change a wee bit as well. We'll focus on that more in grammar next in a subsequent video. So let's try this activity now where we want you to use the verbs and nouns that we're going to show you here, and you think of them as sequencing devices. So we've got make, distribute, and sell. How could you use, say, distribute as a sequencing device? So here's some examples. Let's imagine that the product that's being made in this process is plural. So we're going to say after distributing, or they are then distributed, or following distribution, they are. So you can do the same thing with make and sell, and we'd like you to do that with your partner now. And also you could try these nouns. So nouns finishing in ER, you quite often see them in a process. As soon as you see that, you should think, okay, what other word forms can I have, and how could I use those word forms to help with sequencing and cohesion in a process? Finally, let's have a look at a diagram. Now, when we look at this one here, what do you think about this answer? And especially in terms of coherence, is it easy to understand and follow? Hopefully you're the same as me, and the answer to that would be no. It's very confusing, especially in the middle paragraphs, the second and third body paragraph here, where the writer starts by saying in the current design, but then they start talking about the future. So it's very confusing. Then they mention the future again, then they come back present, future, and they finish with the present. So very confusing. And then there's another paragraph. It almost seems like the person has just realized, oh yeah, there's some other things I must mention. And that's probably what's happened. This is really due to a lack of planning in the pre-writing stage. Don't write like that. Instead, look at this nice, clear organization. So they're using the same language here to introduce the body paragraph in the current design, but they are now just talking about the current design. And then in the next one, the second body paragraph, they're talking about the future. Now this is a wee bit more complicated because here they've decided to talk about the change from the present to the future. But you notice the focus of that paragraph is on the future order. But typically you'd want to describe from left to right or from top to bottom or around clockwise for both images. Now let's have a quick review of what we've talked about here today. So we focused on line graphs. The blue, remember, is good things, and the red were problems that we've noticed. So the line graph had good linking phrases between paragraphs. The bar chart spoke about cohesion now between sentences, and they're starting to think about referencing and substitution for time, first of all, and then we looked at it for males and females. So remember, those two things are mentioned quite often in task 1 writing, time and males and females. Pie charts, we would look at some problems now with a lack of paragraphing and repetitive sequencing. And at table, we looked at good stuff again, how in the process, we looked at good things again. We focused on where sequencing should be in a process. And finally, we looked at diagrams, and that was a good finish because we saw the difference between poor organization and clear organization and how that made it much easier for the reader to understand. So remember, good coherence and cohesion comes with pre-writing. So you've got to have done your pre-writing first, and then you'll have good coherence and cohesion.